My endeavor to review and rank every single episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars has finally reached the end of Season 2. I'm sure you have all been following along, but for anyone playing catch up, I have decided to compile every single review and ranking video for Season 2 here in a single video. You all know what this is, I don't need to explain any further. So without any more delays, this is every single episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 2 ranked and reviewed. Enjoy. I'm on a mission to review and rank every single episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars, and I'm not stopping until it is done. I'm of course talking about the critically acclaimed 3D computer animated Star Wars anthology series that first aired in 2008 and ended in 2020. Not to be confused with Star Wars Clone Wars, the 2D animated micro series that was released in 2003. I'm watching and reviewing every single episode in the official release order to keep things simple and ranking each episode as I go along. When all is said and done, I'll have a complete and comprehensive ranking of every episode from the entire series. So to make sure you don't miss a single episode, like this video and subscribe to the channel to ensure you stay on this journey with me. There will be spoilers for today's featured episode, so viewers beware. Now, on to today's episode. Today we are looking at episode 1 from season 2 titled Holocron Heist. Ahsoka is put on guard duty in the Jedi Archives under the watch of Jocasta Nu as punishment for disobeying orders during a battle with Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. During Ahsoka's punishment, Cad Bane, with the help of a shapeshifter called Kato Parasiti and a droid called Todo 360, breaks into the Holocron Vault to steal a holocron for Darth Sidious that will lead him to every Force-sensitive child in the galaxy. Parasiti initially takes the shape of a dead Jedi Master called Master Innocence and aids Bane from the archives before being forced to take the form of Jocasta Nu after she discovers the bounty hunter. While Anakin and Obi-Wan are busy chasing Cad Bane after Master Yoda senses the presence of a trespasser in the temple, Ahsoka discovers Parasiti imitating Nu and defeats the bounty hunter. In the end, Bane escapes with the holocron after blowing up Todo in the communications center with a bomb he planted earlier as a distraction, and after learning from the shapeshifter that Bane's next target is a Jedi Master, Anakin and Ahsoka set out to stop the bounty hunter. Holocron Heist kicks off Clone Wars' second season with a very solid episode following up season 1's Cad Bane escapade with another job for the bounty hunter. There is a lot happening here and I love all of it. Cad Bane continues to prove why he is a fan favorite. He is once again effortlessly cool and pulls off a job that would make Boba Fett piss his pants. He honestly plays the Jedi for fools, so much so that Obi-Wan and Anakin end up protecting the wrong section of the temple because nobody thinks that a bounty hunter would even be able to get into the holocron vault, let alone even want a holocron in the first place. Seeing a heist play out in the Star Wars universe is slowly becoming a tired trope in the modern state of the franchise, but back when this episode aired, it was still a fun and fresh novelty. On top of an already excellent heist storyline, we also continue to see Ahsoka's character mature in this episode. The start of the episode throws us right into the middle of a classic Clone Wars conflict with air and ground combat to boot in a very cool battle that honestly doesn't last long enough. This is of course all just a setup for Ahsoka to arrogantly disregard orders from Anakin and Obi-Wan after she believes she has the droids retreating when they are in fact about to regroup and pulverize her whole squad. It's a humbling moment for Ahsoka and it continues to quell her disobedience and arrogance. After getting chewed out by the Jedi Council, she does manage to make amends for her mistake by taking out Bane's shape-shifting accomplice, and she ends the episode on a high. I would like to think that the fan opinion of Ahsoka started to well and truly shift by the time this episode aired. Having the episode set in the Jedi Temple, and in particular the Jedi Archives, is one of my favorite aspects here. It's nice to just sit in the temple and soak in the Jedi Order lore and see the Jedi in their regular setting instead of on a battlefield. The spotlight on Jocasta Nu here is also nice, and it gives her character a bit more depth beyond being the dumb grandma that couldn't find Kamino in Attack of the Clones. The premiere episode of season 2 also shows a marked improvement when it comes to the series animation. There is a noticeable difference here compared to season 1, and while even this season still shows its age, Clone Wars should be commended for managing to steadily increase its animation quality with each season. This episode is only dragged down by a few minor nitpicks I have, like why is there a back door in the holocron vault? It's an awful flaw in the design, and the Jedi Council should have picked up on this during the construction of the vault. Also, Bane's shapeshifter accomplice manages to mess with the Jedi Temple systems from a regular old computer in the library. Again, this just feels like another huge security flaw. Who designed the security for this place? Watto? It's like if I could access a library's aircon and lighting from just one of their public PCs. But speaking of the shapeshifter, I do appreciate that they are clearly the same species as Zam Wesell from Attack of the Clones. In fact, between bounty hunters, the Coruscant Underworld, and the Jedi Temple, I got some strong Attack of the Clones vibes from this episode, which I greatly appreciated. Also, I like what they do with Todo 360 in this episode. He's a snarky little droid that Bane tricks into being a suicide bomber, which I found quite funny. Not sure what that says about me, but anyways. Holocron Heist once again utilizes the Star Wars universe to retell another common story archetype with Clone Wars seasoning. Cad Bane continues to prove that he is one of the most efficient and deadly bounty hunters in the universe, Ahsoka continues to grow as a character after learning more valuable lessons, and the visuals bring back fond memories of Attack of the Clones. I love the episode's exploration of the Holocrons and the Jedi Temple, and it's a solid start to a fun arc that we will see play out over the following episodes. And that was Holocron Heist, ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far. It currently sits at number 16. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 2 from season 2 titled Cargo of Doom. After Cad Bane successfully steals a Jedi holocron from the Jedi Temple, with the help of a separatist battalion he kidnaps Jedi Master Ropul and attempts to force him to open the holocron. Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano cut off the bounty hunter's escape and board his ship, but not before Bane tortures Ropul to death after he fails to get him to open the holocron. After he begins his ship's self-destruct sequence, Bane quickly hatches a plan after engaging the Jedi and clones to force Anakin to open the holocron by capturing Ahsoka and threatening to kill her if he refuses. In the end, Anakin opens the holocron, saves Ahsoka, and escapes the exploding ship. Bane seemingly dies during the ship's destruction, but Anakin still isn't convinced that he is actually dead by the end of the episode. Cargo of Doom improves upon Season 2's premiere episode by providing spectacular and unique action, while simultaneously continuing to prove why Cad Bane has the reputation that he does. Straight away, seeing Bane work with a separatist battalion in this episode is a clear highlight. It's honestly shocking to see that Bane commands battle droids and ships more efficiently than any other separatist general we have seen in the series thus far. He seems to have a solution for every problem he faces in the episode, and he takes full advantage of the fact that he has a disposable army to make use of. He mercilessly tortures Master Ropul to his death, and like every great bounty hunter, he learns from this mistake by using a different form of persuasion later on to unlock the holocron. Bane stands out from every other bounty hunter in the Star Wars universe because nobody else is able to make plans this methodically, and he is a brilliant improviser. I honestly can't help but be impressed with the guy. This extends to the action in the episode as well. Bane makes good use of his dual pistols, flies around in zero gravity with his jet boots, and manages to take out Ahsoka. Anakin's plan to board Bane's ship with ATTEs is nothing short of brilliant, and it makes for a unique and exciting action sequence. Paired with the zero gravity skirmish that we see in the middle of the episode, not only does Cargo of Doom deliver good old-fashioned clone trooper and Jedi versus droid action, but there are some nice gimmicks within the sequences here that help this episode's action stand out. Anakin also gets to dual-wield lightsabers, which is a nice touch. Bane's manipulation of Anakin is also a clear standout here. Bane's plan to separate the Jedi and Padawan, capture Ahsoka, and then use her as a means of encouragement to force Anakin to open the holocron is a stroke of genius, and once again we see Anakin fail to understand that the Jedi are forbidden from attachment. Additionally, I also really like that Ahsoka has to argue with Anakin to get him to come to his senses and not chase Bane while the ship is exploding around him at the end of the episode. Anakin's realization is a nice moment, and it shows that their relationship isn't just a one-sided affair. I only have one problem with this episode, which comes from a plot point in the following episode, but it's still relevant here regardless. In the next episode, we find out that Bane is still alive, shocker, and that he escaped the ship with the Jedi by disguising himself as Clone Trooper Denal. Great plan, except I find it hard to believe that Bane had time to steal Denal's armor, put his outfit on Denal, and then set up this janky ass execution shot to make everyone else think Bane was dead. It's smart, but I cannot fathom that Bane had the time to pull this off. But I do like that you can clearly pick up Bane's voice when he is disguised as he talks to Anakin at the end of the episode. Otherwise, I really like the battle droids in this episode. They have a lot of funny moments that bring some appreciated levity to the affair, even if it makes me question why Count Dooku thought fighting a war with these dummies was a good idea. Also, a special shout out to Master Ropul, who never broke under Bane's torture and died instead of opening the holocron. He didn't make much of an impression, but that act of self-sacrifice is pretty impressive. Oh, and I love how Admiral Yularen is totally over Anakin's shenanigans in this episode. He straight up says out of all the Jedi, why did he have to get paired with Skywalker? I just think it's funny that Anakin has this reputation as a crazy Jedi within the Republic. Cargo of Doom continues Season 2's strong debut with an episode that one-ups the season premiere with more action. Bane continues to prove that he is a real threat. The Walker landing and Zero Gravity shootout are two of the best action beats we have ever seen from the series, and Bane's plan to use Ahsoka to force Anakin to open the holocron is brilliant. Overall, it's Clone Wars doing what the series does best. And that was Cargo of Doom. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 13. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 3 from season 2 titled Children of the Force. After Cad Bane escapes from his exploding ship by disguising himself as a clone trooper, he is discovered aboard Anakin Skywalker's cruiser. Bane manages to escape with a holocron containing the names of every Force-sensitive child in the galaxy, and he is hired by Darth Sidious to kidnap these children so that the Sith Lord can turn them into his own Sith spy slaves. Bane is captured by Anakin and Ahsoka before he is able to steal all of the children, but he manages to escape once again after he leads Obi-Wan Kenobi and Mace Windu to the holocron stored in a booby-trapped base. Meanwhile, Anakin and Ahsoka discover that the stolen children are being held on Mustafar and set out to rescue them. In the end, Kenobi and Windu recover the holocron, Anakin and Ahsoka return the children to their families, and Bane is still loose in the universe. At this point, it goes without saying that Cad Bane is a lot of fun to watch in this episode. His plan to disguise himself as a clone trooper to escape from the Republic is brilliant, and I love how he looks with the clone armor on. I also think it's pretty funny how he just hits Ahsoka right in the gut. Then, of course, he spends the rest of the episode being a child predator. I mean, come on, he's running around kidnapping kids, isn't that the proper term? I think it's pretty funny that Bane has no problem doing the most despicable stuff ever just for a paycheck. Like, if Palpatine asked him to kill the kids, he probably would have done that as well. I love how evil he is for just no reason. It's also equally funny that he is undone by a stuffed toy of all things. Cad Bane's smart, but he still messes up every now and then. Bane's reputation only grows when even after Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Mace Windu try to break into the bounty hunter's mind together, Bane still doesn't break. Bane honestly starts to border on Starkiller levels of brokenness at certain points in this series. But of course, Bane's incarceration doesn't last long after he lures Obi-Wan and Windu to a secret base where he is keeping the holocron. The Jedi spring Bane's trap, giving him a chance to escape in a sequence with some fun in-universe booby traps. Despite Bane's skill, the Jedi do still have some impressive moments in this episode. They manage to determine the locations of every child that Bane attempts to kidnap by just reaching out through the Force in a scene that shows off the more spiritual side of the Jedi. I also like how this episode gives us some idea of how the Order finds younglings. Anakin and Ahsoka get the opportunity to make amends for letting Bane escape by tracking down the children by examining the logs on Bane's ship, which leads them to Mustafar. It's always nice to see a familiar planet in Star Wars, and this episode makes it even more special by sending Anakin to Mustafar. A lot of memories with this place. The sequence where they rescue the kids from medical droids in a base falling into the lava is super fun, and of course it gets bonus points for echoing the sequence from Revenge of the Sith. Overall, I don't have any major issues with the episode outside of a few nitpicks. For example, who would think Cad Bane is a Jedi? Like, good on this Rodian for not being space prejudiced, but like, come on. This guy just screams bad guy. Like, yeah, this guy with the tricked out space gauntlets is definitely a space monk. Checks out. Come on. Also, why does he just wait at the door for Obi-Wan instead of immediately taking off with the kid? Like, I get he wants to gloat, but he knows better than this. Otherwise, I like how Anakin wants to update Palpatine on the mission when Obi-Wan and Mace don't. Again, it shows that Anakin respects Palpatine and wants to impress him, and it continues to show that the Emperor was definitely grooming Anakin right from the start. Look, between Anakin and Palpatine and Cad Bane stealing kids, there's some weird predatory undertones to this episode that honestly creep me out. Really don't like the fact that I'm getting these vibes from a kid's cartoon. Children of the Force caps off Season 2's first complete arc with another solid episode. Cad Bane once again shows off his skills and becomes a certified kidnapper. We get some insight into how Jedi find the next generation of younglings and see more of their spiritual side, and we get some fun callbacks to Revenge of the Sith. It's a unique story among the Clone Wars' library of episodes, and it doesn't fail to entertain. And that was Children of the Force. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 17. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 4 from season 2 titled Senate Spy. After the Republic begins to suspect that Senator Rush Clovis is secretly working with separatists, they ask Padme Amidala, who was once very close to Clovis, to spy on the senator to confirm their suspicions. Padme, with Anakin Skywalker escorting her, travels to Cato Nemoidia with Clovis to meet the Trade Federation, where she discovers that Clovis is secretly helping to fund a droid factory for Count Dooku. Padme steals the plans to the factory, but not before she is poisoned by the Trade Federation in an attempt to use her against Clovis. In the end, Anakin and Clovis work together to get the antidote from the Trade Federation. Anakin takes Padme and the plans back to Coruscant and leaves Clovis behind to deal with the consequences of his actions. Senate Spy kicks off the longest arc Clone Wars ever had, with an episode that gives us a break from the action in favor of some political intrigue. I used to really hate episodes like this when I was younger because I just wasn't interested in the politics of Star Wars. In fact, it still doesn't make me overly giddy even now, but I will say that I can appreciate episodes like this more now that I am older. That being said, I'm still not overly impressed with this episode, but let's start with what I do like. I like how this episode shines a spotlight on Anakin and Padme, and it isn't afraid to highlight the weaker aspects of their relationship, specifically Anakin's over-emotional states and his jealousy. That being said, Anakin is a really shitty boyfriend in this episode. He doesn't trust Padme with Clovis, he tries to bar her from going on this vital mission, and he's just extremely childish about the whole situation. Don't get me wrong, it is funny to see this play out. Seeing Anakin in such a grouchy mood for the whole episode is very funny, and I love how he spends the entire episode just messing with Clovis, and then tops it all off by leaving him to face the Trade Federation alone. Anakin can be a very petty person, and honestly this episode makes him look like a total knobhead. But it does make for an interesting dynamic when he is forced to work with him at the end of the episode after Padme is poisoned, so there is that. Padme obviously shines in this episode. She gives the Republic a major victory by stealing the droid factory plans, and she plays Clovis like a fool. The show also just does a very good job of making you hate Clovis. He just comes across as an arrogant asshole, and Anakin's urge to strangle him is passed directly onto the audience. You love to hate him, but there isn't a whole lot to him beyond that. Additionally, there are a few weak points in this episode that really drag the whole thing down. I really don't understand why Padme gives Anakin such a hard time over his Jedi duties. Like, I get he's been away for what is probably months, and he is called away again after they just get to spend some time together. But the fact is, Anakin dodges Obi-Wan's calls for most of the night, yet that just isn't good enough for Padme, and she holds it against him for the entire episode. It's a little unfair considering that Padme constantly takes digs at Anakin for distracting her from work during the entire series. Speaking of Anakin and Padme, Anakin continues to do an awful job of hiding their relationship from everybody. He takes way too much interest in Padme's personal life in front of the Jedi Council, and doesn't exactly hide how he feels about Padme having a past relationship with someone else. It's obvious that Obi-Wan knows, and it's like I've previously said, I'm pretty sure that Anakin and Padme were just an open secret during the Clone Wars. Also, Clovis's highly secure password for his military plans is Padme. Not only is he an asshole, but apparently he is also a massive idiot. But beyond my major problems with the episode, there are some small things here that I do like. I love how R2 offers Anakin food while he is working on the ship. It's a very cute moment. Also, I love Obi-Wan's expression when Anakin starts to seem a little too interested in Padme in front of the other Jedi. It's so clear that Obi-Wan knows all about his little romance, but I've always believed that Obi-Wan did nothing about it because he had a similar affair when he was Anakin's age. Don't worry, that's coming up this season too. Senate Spy is a weaker Clone Wars episode that marks the low point of Clone Wars' longest arc. While it's always nice to see some political intrigue to flesh out the wider universe, Padme's mission to spy on her past flame rush Clovis doesn't really do much to impress. Padme and Anakin act irrationally the whole episode, there isn't anything particularly thrilling to make up for the lack of action, and Clovis is a largely uninteresting personality. To put it bluntly, this isn't what we watch Clone Wars for. And that was Senate Spy, ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far. It currently sits at number 25. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 5 from season 2 titled Landing at Point Rain. After the Republic learns about a new droid factory operating on Geonosis, they launch a full-scale invasion on the planet as the Geonosians start to rise up against the Republic with the Separatists again. Anakin Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Ki-Adi-Mundi lead the invasion as they attempt an air-to-ground assault, but their ships are shot down, scattering the whole assault. The battle is long and bloody, but in the end, the generals regroup and overpower the Geonosians. At the end of the episode, the Republic takes out the Geonosians' ray shield, clearing the way for them to begin their assault on the droid factory. Unlike the first episode of this arc, Landing at Point Rain delivers classic Clone Wars action in spades. This is an extremely straightforward but effective Clone Wars episode that is only concerned about delivering boots on the ground action. Not only does this mark the first major Republic invasion that we have seen during Clone Wars, but it is also the first time that the Republic has returned to Geonosis since Attack of the Clones. The battle in this episode is very reminiscent of what we saw in that film, and there is a nice smattering of other callbacks littered throughout the episode, like when Obi-Wan tells Cody about how he had to fight the giant creatures in the arena. This is without a doubt the biggest and most ambitious battle that we have seen play out in Clone Wars so far, and it's a bloodbath. Most of the Republic ships get shot down in the chaotic air-to-ground assault that involves 4 Jedi generals, including Ki-Adi-Mundi. Mundi is a much welcomed presence in the episode, providing a calm and patient perspective in what is otherwise a loud and bombastic episode. It's honestly hard to picture how Mundi adapted to become a wartime general, but he is very good at it. As for the other Jedi in this episode, Obi-Wan's desperate holdout against the Geonosians gives the episode a nice layer of tension, and Anakin and Ahsoka's takedown of the giant separatist barricade is a super fun action beat. I especially love how they throw Rex off of the wall and catch him at the bottom as it's blowing up. The whole battle is a huge bloodbath for both sides, and it's a nice change of pace to see the Republic fight living creatures for once. I love how freaky the Geonosians are, and seeing the Jedi cut through them is super satisfying. The action is what sells this episode, and it doesn't disappoint. I also appreciate Anakin and Ahsoka counting their kills as part of a competition they have going, only to be beaten by Mundi at the end. It's a playful aspect that gives the battle a little bit of levity. Honestly, I can't find any obvious flaws in this episode. I love it. I think it's a brilliant piece of Clone Wars warfare that shows off the series' potential to portray the war's deadliest battles. Besides the fighting, there are a lot of smaller moments here I love as well. Troopers Waxer and Boyle make another appearance, and one of them even has Numa painted on the side of their helmet. I also can't get over this borderline slapstick moment where a clone trooper in a gunship jokes that it's a good thing those bugs can't aim, only to get shot down immediately afterwards. Oh, I was laughing so hard I had to pause the episode.
Good thing those bugs can't aim.
Finally, it's also super cool to see the various clone trooper variants in this episode. We have ARC troopers in Geonosis Camo, special operations troops led by Jet, and frickin' flamethrower troopers that barbecue the Geonosians. Also, does anyone think that it's kind of fucked up that this was in a kids show? I mean, it's awesome, but damn, I was like 10 years old when I watched this. Landing at Point Rain gets Season 2 back on track by delivering Clone Wars' biggest action set piece yet. The second Battle of Geonosis is a certified bloodbath that delivers the action we have come to expect from Clone Wars. It's compelling seeing the Jedi and clone troopers on their back foot for most of the episode, only for them to overcome impossible odds and have a triumphant victory at the end of it all. Ki-Adi-Mundi gets some much needed screen time, and the Attack of the Clones callbacks make me a very happy prequels fan. This is a simple but damn effective episode of Clone Wars. And that was Landing at Point Rain. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 9. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 6 from season 2 titled Weapons Factory. After successfully landing on and securing the surface of Geonosis, Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano plan their attack on the droid weapon factory. They are joined by Master Luminara and her apprentice Barriss Offee, who provide a plan to destroy the factory from the inside. Ahsoka and Barriss sneak into the factory through the catacombs below into the control room, where they plant charges on the main reactor, while Anakin and Luminara distract the droids and Geonosians above with with a full front-on assault. The Separatists start to turn the tide of the battle when they unleash their new super tanks upon Anakin and Luminara, as they also catch Ahsoka and Barriss in the factory below and steal their charges. Ahsoka and Barriss improvise, stealing a super tank and using its cannons to destroy the generator and factory, burying themselves during the process. In the end, Anakin and Luminara manage to find and save the two Padawans, and they celebrate their victory together. Weapons Factory continues to deliver brilliant Clone Wars action on Geonosis with the infiltration and destruction of a Separatist droid factory. The front-on assault with Anakin and Luminara delivers another thrilling large-scale battle, the factory infiltration with Ahsoka and Barriss through the catacombs that climaxes with the destruction of the factory is gorgeous, and Anakin and Luminara's climb under the bridge to rig it to explode and destroy the super tanks is a fun set piece to top it all off. Yes, the action is the flashy main draw of the episode, but for me personally, the real gold here is the exploration of the relationship between a Jedi Master and their apprentice. Anakin and Ahsoka's relationship is contrasted against Luminara and Barriss's during this episode, and it reveals a lot about Skywalker and Tano. Anakin and Ahsoka operate on a form of balanced chaos, whereas Luminara and Offie have a stern and disciplined chain of command. Both pairs get results their own way, but seeing the comparison between the two shows just how unconventional yet effective Ahsoka and Anakin are. It's nice to see Ahsoka working with another Padawan in the form of Barriss. Stuff like this doesn't happen very often during the series, so it's a nice change of pace. The journey both of them take through the catacombs filled with sleeping Geonosians is super tense, and the art design present in the tunnels is suitably creepy. Their bold move to basically sacrifice themselves by destroying the reactor is also a very touching moment, and it shows a huge amount of growth for Ahsoka. But it's in the aftermath that we get to explore the most compelling part of the episode, Anakin's struggle to let go. Anakin doesn't want Ahsoka to go on her mission at the start of the episode, not because he doesn't think that she can do it, but because he is scared for her safety. Anakin's fatal flaw is that he holds strong attachments for the people in his life, a noble quality for most people, but a fatal one for a Jedi. Arguably, it's what led to his downfall, and it's why he is scared to lose Ahsoka. There is a recurring theme of Anakin having to prepare himself to let go of Ahsoka throughout Clone Wars. It was established in the movie, and Luminara brings it up again here. When the two are searching for their Padawans, Luminara accepts that Barriss might be dead, and she is at peace with that. Yet Anakin refuses to believe that Ahsoka is dead. Sure, it drives them to eventually find the Padawans, but it's a clever piece of foreshadowing that shows Anakin's eagerness to be driven by his emotions. It's interesting stuff, and it adds a nice emotional layer to a standard Clone Wars affair. I only have one small nitpick with this episode. Once again, the Separatists introduce a new extremely effective weapon in the form of their super tanks, only for them to be destroyed in this episode and never used again. See, this is why they lost the war. Oh, and Poggle the Lesser is in this episode, the creepy little king of the Geonosians from Attack of the Clones. I can't wait to see Poggle the Equal and Poggle them all. Weapons Factory delivers another very fun episode of Clone Wars that shows us another excellent battle on Geonosis paired with some more introspective elements. The two-pronged assault on the droid factory is thrilling, and the exploration of Anakin's attachment to Ahsoka is intriguing. Luminara and Barriss round out an excellent cast of characters for the episode, and the destruction of the factory is a very satisfying sight. I love seeing these gross little bugs get popped. And that was Weapons Factory, ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far. It currently sits at number 14. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 7 from season 2, titled Legacy of Terror. After the destruction of the Geonosis droid factory, Jedi Master Luminara Unduli pursues Poggle the Lesser as he attempts to escape the Republic. But after she disappears at a local temple, Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi set out to rescue her. The two Jedi and their clones discover a system of catacombs underneath the temple that is ruled by the Geonosian Queen, controlling an army of undead Geonosians who have taken Luminara prisoner. The Queen attempts to control Luminara with the brainworm she uses for her own soldiers, but she is stopped by Anakin and Obi-Wan. In the end, the Jedi and their clones collapse the tunnels, killing the Queen and her soldiers, rescue Luminara, capture Poggle, and escape the tunnels. For years, I've seen Star Wars fans talk about how cool it would be to see a Star Wars horror film, and every time I see this sentiment, I think to myself, well, we already got it with Clone Wars. Legacy of Terror is the Star Wars universe's answer to the all-time classic zombie monster, opting to use Geonosians as the undead army in an episode that scares and thrills. The story starts out simple enough, with Luminara tracking Poggle the Lesser across Geonosis as he attempts to escape the Republic. She tracks him to this creepy temple with a great aesthetic where she is quickly overpowered by an undead army. There's this great air of secrecy around what exactly attacked Luminara at the temple that isn't revealed until Anakin and Obi-Wan venture into the catacombs beneath the temple. The temple was certainly creepy, but the tunnels beneath are scary. There is zero light underground, and the environment is only lit up by clone spotlights, lightsabers, and eventually blaster fire when the Jedi discover who took Luminara. The undead Geonosians are suitably creepy. They are mindless creatures who tank blaster fire like it is nothing and don't really go down from anything short of a lightsaber. Their blank eyes, guttural screams, and insectoid appearance all combine to create a suitably terrifying creature from the darker side of the Star Wars universe. And then there's the leader of this undead army, the Queen. Basically this giant fat female Geonosian with a crown who can speak broken English. It's a super cool design that clearly pays homage to the dynamic we saw in Aliens, with the giant Queen controlling her smaller, more efficient minions. She even lays eggs, which really grossed me out for a second. Not that stuff like this disturbs me, but I wasn't expecting to see something this detailed and slimy in Clone Wars, and I totally forgot this was in the show. The whole setting makes for a very creepy episode that sets itself apart from the rest of the series, and the fight between the Republic and the undead is quite brutal, with more than a bit of alien juice spilling out of the undead creatures. It's nice seeing this new side of a planet that we are already familiar with, and again, it reinforces that there are whole civilizations and stories behind every planet in the Star Wars universe, no matter how insignificant it might be within the Skywalker saga. I can't pick out any major flaws in this episode. It's a well-executed horror story in the Star Wars universe. What isn't to love? I love it for a lot of the same reasons I love Lair of Grievous from the previous season. It's a classic story told with Star Wars seasoning. It's nothing new narratively, but the Star Wars aesthetic breathes life into a tired horror trope. There are also a lot of other little moments I like here. I love Poggle's little caravan that he takes into the desert and how clearly cobbled together it is. It's always funny seeing mighty separatist leaders being forced into desperate situations like this. The hand-to-hand combat that Luminara uses against the undead after she loses her lightsaber is a nice touch, and it shows once again that the Jedi are capable of fighting even without their laser swords. Once again, Anakin's rashness makes him butt heads with the older, more patient Jedi after he suggests going after Luminara during a sandstorm until Obi-Wan and Ki-Adi-Mundi make him come to his senses. Again, Anakin is still being driven by emotion. And of course, Obi-Wan's fascination with the undead creatures they find under Geonosis is a lot of fun. I love how annoyed he gets when Anakin crushes one of the brainworms that he wanted to study. Legacy of Terror is an excellent episode of Clone Wars. It's scary, thrilling, and the episode shows us a new side of Geonosis that we could have never imagined. The clear homage to James Cameron's Aliens is a loving sci-fi homage, the action is tense, and all in all it makes for an excellent horror movie with a Star Wars twist. And that was Legacy of Terror. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 12. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 8 from season 2 titled Brain Invaders. After defeating the undead Geonosians and capturing Poggle the Lesser, the Jedi on Geonosis are instructed to take their prisoner to Coruscant, but after they receive a request to deliver medical supplies to Mace Windu, the Jedi task their Padawans Ahsoka Tano and Barriss Offee with the mission. But after a clone trooper infected by a Geonosian parasite joins the mission, he infects the rest of the crew and takes over the ship. Barriss and Ahsoka do their best to fight off the infected clone troopers, but Barriss is captured and infected. After Ahsoka manages to contact Anakin Skywalker, he interrogates Poggle about the creatures and discovers the parasites are vulnerable to the cold. Anakin delivers the information to Ahsoka and instructs her to rupture the ship's cooling system to defeat the creatures. In the end, the ship docks with the medical station after Ahsoka ruptures the system, killing the creatures and saving Barriss and the clones. Brain Invaders follows on nicely from the previous episode by delivering another horror movie of a Clone Wars episode. The aliens homages that the previous episode thrived on are present here again, with a much bigger focus on infection and possession. The Geonosian parasites, or brainworms as I like to call them, are very freaky little creatures. I love how they just slip into their host's nose, how violently the body reacts to them, and how the host eyes just rolls back into their head. It's all very creepy, and I love that the show is allowed to get this dark. Speaking of host, there is a nice variety of clones in this episode. I'm talking about the style of each clone here. There are a lot of distinct troopers stormtroopers mixed in here, some with different coloured eyes, unique facial hair, and even different hair colours. We see stuff like this all the time in Clone Wars, but I don't think I've seen so much distinction in a single squad before. Of course, Barriss and Ahsoka shine once again in this episode. It's nice to see them totally independent. They're allowed to be children and they just enjoy each other's company for a little while. They are, after all, children fighting in an adult's world, so it's nice to see them take comfort in one another. I especially like how they talk about what they think about their masters and their thoughts on Jedi being peacekeepers that are forced to be warriors. They even talk about what they think things will be like after the war, which brings Ahsoka to mention that Anakin has some radical ideas about the future that she isn't sure people will agree with. It's not much, but it's another subtle hint towards the idea that maybe Anakin's allegiance with the Emperor in Revenge of the Sith was more premeditated than we thought. But unfortunately, the Padawans are interrupted by the infected clones, leading to some tense encounters where for once the Jedi don't really want to kill their enemy. It's nice seeing some non-lethal takedowns from the Jedi, although Barriss still doesn't hesitate to kill a trooper at one point, which I like to think is a subtle nod towards where she eventually ends up in the series. Otherwise, it's a lot of fun seeing the two crawl around in the vents, overload the cooling, and Barriss's insistence on Ahsoka killing her at the end of the episode to stop the parasite starts an interesting conversation between Ahsoka and Anakin about being able to make hard decisions when the time comes. This is a great episode that I only have one major nitpick with. Sure, I don't understand proper quarantine procedures in this Star Wars universe, but Kit Fisto orders Ahsoka to let the infected ship dock at the medical station so they can contain the parasites. Surely that's an awful idea, right? Wouldn't it be smarter to board the ship outside of the station and deal with the problem in open space? Personally, I think their solution is a little stupid, but I could of course be wrong. Otherwise, the episode delivers a lot of other cool moments. Anakin torturing Poggle to get the parasite's weakness out of him is a dark moment that sees Anakin beat and choke the Geonosian, and the Empire theme plays softly in the background while he does so. It's obvious, but it's a cool moment nonetheless. Additionally, when Ahsoka and Barriss are initially unsure of why the infected clones attacked them, Ahsoka mentions that Anakin was once betrayed by a clone who was working for Asajj Ventress. This is of course a reference to the clone trooper Slick from the previous season, which I thought was a nice touch. Brain Invaders is another suitably spooky Clone Wars episode that wraps up the second Battle of Geonosis arc with a bang. Ahsoka and Barriss shine in their very own episode that sees them fight off infected clone troopers and even each other. Ahsoka's improving skills are shown off, and there are some important discussions here that I really enjoy. Overall, the episode delivers spectacular horror-infused action with some deeper musings on the Jedi's place in the Clone Wars. And that was Brain Invaders. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 16. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today, we are looking at episode 9 from season 2 titled Grievous Intrigue. After General Grievous takes Jedi Master Eve Koth captive, Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Adi Gala launch a plan to rescue him and hopefully capture the cyborg as well. Obi-Wan draws Grievous onto his cruiser to keep him occupied while Skywalker and Gala board Grievous's ship to rescue Master Koth. Unfortunately, Grievous predicts the Jedi strategy and takes precautions, but even that is not enough to stop the Jedi from rescuing Master Koth. In the end, the Jedi rescue Master Koth, and while Grievous does manage to escape, his ship is damaged from the battle and he crash lands on the planet Seleucami below. The episode ends with Obi-Wan and the clone troopers commencing a planet-wide search for General Grievous. Grievous Intrigue gives us another nice one-off Clone Wars episode that returns the series to the shorter arcs that we saw in Season 1 after the Monster Geonosis arc. Grievous makes his grand Season 2 debut here, and he is as scary as ever. One of the best things Clone Wars ever did was turn Grievous into a villain that people actually take seriously instead of the coughing and spluttering cyborg that everyone laughed at in Revenge of the Sith. Sure, he's a dirty cheat, letting his Magna Guard save his ass every time he even comes close to losing a lightsaber duel, but he is still a formidable enemy. Not a lot of people can walk away from a lightsaber fight with Kenobi, so he at least has that going for him. I especially like this sequence where Grievous is trying to escape Obi-Wan's ship after he figures out that the Jedi is trying to capture him. It's always fun seeing him scramble around on all fours, and I love how the clones pile onto him and start punching him. It's always nice having a sequence in Clone Wars that isn't always a straight up fight. But my favorite moment from Grievous in this episode is the message he sends the Jedi Order after he captures Eve Koff. This dude sends a video of him torturing a Jedi Master for no purpose other than to gloat and taunt the Order. It's such a petty act that I can't help but love it. Speaking of Eve Koff, this episode marks his first major appearance in Clone Wars, along with Jedi Master Adi Gullah. Koff doesn't have a lot of defining features here, but at the very least it is always nice to see a random Jedi be fleshed out just a little bit more so he isn't just known as that random Jedi who got skewered by Palpatine in episode 3. Pretty much the same can be said for Gala. She is another cut and dry Jedi Master. Where this episode really shines is in its action sequences. There is a healthy dose of lightsaber combat, blaster fights, and space warfare here. The battle is fought on multiple fronts in this episode and it's very fun to watch. Obi-Wan duels Grievous, Anakin and Gala rescue Koff, and there is a huge space battle happening in the background. There are also a lot of small moments that stand out here as well, like when this clone gets taken out by a flying door at the start of the episode. Another thing that I did pick up on here is that while Obi-Wan does fight Magna Guards, he doesn't defeat any by slicing off their heads. I appreciate this because I always think about when he fights them aboard Grievous's ship in Revenge of the Sith and is surprised when one keeps fighting after he slices its head off. I've always thought it was strange that Obi-Wan never knew that they could function without their head, but clearly he never defeated one by decapitation before, so I guess he didn't know. Sure, someone should have told him that they don't need their head to function, but I guess if he has never seen it personally, he would never know. I've always thought it was a cool detail that he never discovered this during Clone Wars because it means that scene still makes sense. Grievous Intrigue returns Clone Wars to steadier and shorter stories after the monster arc from before it. The introduction of Master Eve Koff and Adi Gullah are nice entries into the Clone Wars universe, and Grievous continues to prove why he has the reputation he does. The lightsaber fights are excellent, there is plenty of blaster fire, and the space combat is thrilling. This Jedi mission to rescue Eve Koff is a lot of fun, and it provides some of the most diverse action we have seen from Season 2 so far. Grievous certainly kept me intrigued. And that was Grievous Intrigue. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 19. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 10 from season 2 titled The Deserter. After General Grievous is left stranded on Seleucami, Obi-Wan and his clone troopers launch a hunt to capture the cyborg general. Shortly after, Captain Rex is injured during the hunt, forcing his troopers to shelter him with a local farming family. While healing at the farm, Rex discovers that one of the farmers is a clone deserter who lives on the farm with his wife and 2 children. While Rex is quick to judge the clone trooper called Cut, the two eventually develop a mutual respect for one another. Rex's healing is interrupted when Cut's children accidentally awaken an escape pod full of commando droids, leaving Rex and Cut to defend the homestead. Meanwhile, General Grievous is busy holding out against Obi-Wan's battalion while he waits for a separatist shuttle to rescue him. In the end, General Grievous escapes to fight another day, Rex and Cut defeat the commando droids, and Rex leaves the homestead to rejoin his troops, promising Cut that he won't turn him into the Republic. The Deserter once again provides us with another episode that allows the clones to shine with minimal input from the Jedi. That being said, it is still interesting to see Rex and Obi-Wan paired up for the start of this episode. Seeing Anakin's captain under the command of Obi-Wan is a nice change of pace, and Rex doesn't skip a beat under his new commander. The battalion's hunt for General Grievous is the main driver behind the plot here, and it's interesting seeing them track Grievous while he is on his incredibly desperate back foot, trudging through unknown territory with his battle droids slowly falling one by one as their power depletes to empty. It's a simple chase between the Republic and Grievous with a desperate holdout at the end, but it's an effective through line for the entire episode that provides something more unique than a face-to-face battle. The hunt is all well and good, but the real meat and potatoes of this episode is the story with Rex and Cut. At the beginning, Cut is obviously scared of Rex, and Rex thinks Cut is a deserting coward. Cut believes Rex will turn him into the Republic, which is in fact what the captain wants to do at the beginning of the episode. But what begins as a tense situation between two clones turns into a deeper discussion about what gives clones purpose and whether or not they truly have free will. I also really like how they foreshadow Cut being a clone when Rex shows up at the farm and Cut is absent. Cut's daughter looks at Rex and says that he looks just like her daddy, which is initially just a cute moment until you realize that she is dead on. Rex is a company man. In his mind, he can think of no greater purpose in life than serving the Republic. He isn't gaslighting himself, he means what he says, which is why he cannot understand why Cut would abandon the war. Of course, this brings us to consider whether or not this is Rex's genetic engineering talking, or if this is a belief he came to hold through his own free will, with a little bit of conditioning, of course. Who is to say that Rex wouldn't walk away from the Republic if he was given the same opportunity as Cut? Of course, Rex initially sees Cut as nothing more than a coward, when in reality, Cut just found a greater purpose. Cut didn't abandon the war because he was scared to fight, he walked away because he found a higher purpose raising and protecting his family. Once he gets Rex to understand this, the captain sees Cut for who he really is. A simple man trying to make his way in the galaxy. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Rex finally comes to understand that Cut is a noble man who has simply found another purpose in life, and he learns to respect that. So much so that Rex doesn't turn Cut into the Republic, which is another major moment considering how cut and dry Rex is about orders and duty. The whole story is honestly one of my favorite plot threads from the entire series, and it shows that clones really are individuals who have free will, but I believe that most of them choose to fight for the Republic because they cannot comprehend any other purpose in life. Cut is a clear example of this. Beyond the emotional core of the episode, the action here is pretty solid. We get two simultaneous holdout sequences here with Cut and Rex defending the farm from a squad of rogue commando droids, and General Grievous holding out against Obi-Wan's battalion while he waits for his extraction. I especially love how Grievous just grapples onto the ship and is towed away from the battle in a last-ditch effort to escape. It is a lot of fun. I only have one major problem with this episode. I cannot comprehend how Rex survives a direct hit from what I assume is a high caliber sniper rifle. Clones have died from a lot less, and while I obviously don't want Rex to die, it's one of the most outrageous pieces of plot armor I have ever witnessed. But it's hard to linger on moments like that when Jesse, Hardcase, and Kix all make an appearance here. These are the big boys when it comes to clone troopers, and it's always nice to be in their company. Rex and Cut also play a game of holo chess at one point, which I greatly appreciated.
I see your point, sir. I suggest a new strategy, R2. Let the Wookiee win.
Oh, and I can't not mention Cut's wife, Sue. Listen, I'm gonna bite my tongue and remain respectful here, but how on earth did this design make it into a kid's show? Look, 10-year-old me certainly appreciated it, even if I didn't fully understand what I was seeing.
I'm about to skip this shit. Skip. But when does this game get fucking good?
But this is just a tad ridiculous. All I'm gonna say is that if this is what defecting from the Republic gets you, then I would have jumped out of the gunship before we even left Camino.
Yo, can you throw him out?
Yeah, can you literally just like...
The Deserter is a clear highlight from Season 2 and one of my personal favourite episodes. The discussion around the free will and purpose of clone troopers between Rex and Cut the Deserter is one of the deepest we've seen from the series, and it gives the episode an emotional core that is lacking from other episodes. The action remains solid, and the hunt for General Grievous is the driving force that takes the episode where it needs to go. It's a deeply introspective episode that makes you think more about the men behind the white armor. And that was The Deserter. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 6. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 11 from season 2 titled Lightsaber Lost. After Ahsoka Tano's lightsaber is stolen by a petty thief during a mission in Coruscant's criminal underworld with Anakin Skywalker, she enlists the help of an elder Jedi Master called Master Terra Sinube to help get it back. Sinube helps Ahsoka by using his knowledge of the Coruscant criminal underworld to track Ahsoka's lightsaber as it passes from criminal to criminal. Eventually they find two criminals called Cassie and Ione with Ahsoka's saber. Both of them escape, with Cassie slipping away from Ahsoka by using the Padawan's lightsaber against her. Sinube manages to place a tracker on Ione that leads the pair to a train station where they have a standoff with Cassie. In the end, the two defeat Cassie, recover Ahsoka's lightsaber, and Ahsoka learns a valuable lesson about patience. Lightsaber Lost is another Clone Wars episode that is entirely dedicated to the continued development of Ahsoka as a character. A simple story of Ahsoka trying to track down her stolen lightsaber is used as a narrative container to teach a wider lesson about patience, grace, and wisdom. I love how the entirety of this episode takes place on Coruscant, specifically in the criminal underworld. It's a part of the universe that hasn't been explored as much as you'd think it would over the years. There is a heavy focus on the criminals and shady individuals that make up the grimier parts of the planet, and it fleshes out the wider universe in a way that I greatly appreciate. The fact that Ahsoka's lightsaber has passed from one party to another multiple times during this single episode is a simple but effective method of showing the interconnected nature of the criminal underworld. Ahsoka's guide through the criminal underworld, Master Terra Sinube, is the clear standout character here. It's always nice to spend time with an older Jedi Master whose greatest strength isn't his skills with a lightsaber, but his mind and wisdom. Sinube specializes in the criminal underworld and displays a deep understanding of the culture and environment that ultimately leads Ahsoka back to her lightsaber. It's interesting to see a Jedi specialize in a specific area of expertise, and he feels like he fell out of a Star Wars police procedural, which is only enhanced by the inclusion of the Coruscant police here. Sinube teaches Ahsoka a lot of important lessons that she wouldn't have learned from a Jedi like Anakin Skywalker, teachings in patience, wisdom, and focus that ultimately help her succeed. It's an interesting choice to pair the rash and quick-to-action Ahsoka with the slow and patient Sinube, but ultimately it leads to Ahsoka leaving the episode as a wiser and more skillful Jedi. Ahsoka is impressed by the results that Sinube's methods get, and she takes them on board, incorporating them into her own discipline. Ahsoka's lightsaber ultimately ends up in the hands of two thieves who Sinube and Ahsoka have to deal with. Ahsoka has a fun chase with Cassie, who uses Ahsoka's lightsaber to alter the environment around her to slow Ahsoka down and ultimately get away. It's interesting seeing an untrained civilian use a lightsaber without any hint of grace, yet still getting results regardless. The episode also touches upon the false belief that a lightsaber makes the Jedi, the idea that some people think that a Jedi's power comes from their weapon, with Cassie saying as much to Ahsoka. There's not a whole lot to dissect here other than it's interesting that some people in the universe have such a surface level understanding of the Jedi Order. And to quickly touch upon Sinube's skill as a detective, I love how he plays with Ione at a crime scene when he knows that something is up. He can sense her anxiety and uneasiness through the Force, and seeing him use his senses to get her to confess is a lot of fun and shows how skilled a Jedi can be in odd situations like this. Sure, you could accuse this episode of being filler, considering that it doesn't do anything to move the wider narrative forward, but its importance lies in the development that it gives Ahsoka and how it affects her moving forward in future episodes. It also helps that there are a lot of smaller moments here that I love, like how the thief who initially stole Ahsoka's saber remarks that he got rid of it ASAP because he almost killed himself with it. Keeping with the theme of civilians not knowing how to use lightsabers, it's also funny seeing Cassie initially struggle to turn on Ahsoka's lightsaber. It's easy to forget that most people in universe go their whole lives without ever actually seeing one in person. Additionally, the meeting of Yoda and Sinube at the end of the episode is also a nice touch. These two have clearly seen a lot together, so seeing them greet each other like old pals is nice. I also like the clear lineage of passing down the lightsaber speech from Master to Padawan here. Ahsoka talks about how Anakin gave her the "this weapon is your life" speech like Obi-Wan did for him, and the episode ends with Ahsoka passing this teaching onto a group of younglings. It's fun seeing the lineage here. Lightsaber Lost presents a break from the wider Clone Wars with a self-contained episode that further develops Ahsoka as a character and teaches some important lessons. I love the police procedural vibe here, and Master Sinube's knowledge and traversal of the Coruscant criminal underworld shows us a side of Star Wars that we rarely get to see. It's fun seeing what multiple civilians do with a lightsaber, and the chases that ensue because of it are a joy to watch. This simple story about Ahsoka trying to reclaim her stolen lightsaber provides standard Clone Wars thrills with some important teachings about grace and patience that make for a fun episode. And that was Lightsaber Lost. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 19. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 12 from season 2 titled The Mandalore Plot. Obi-Wan Kenobi is sent to the neutral planet Mandalore to investigate rumors that the planet's leader Duchess Satine is secretly plotting with the Separatists after a Mandalorian warrior attacked the Republic. Obi-Wan arrives and discovers that the planet is being plagued by a terrorist group of Mandalorian warriors called Death Watch. Eager to investigate, Obi-Wan and Satine travel to the nearby moon Concordia, meeting with Governor Pre Vizsla to discuss Death Watch. Obi-Wan secretly sets out to search the planet's abandoned mines for signs of Death Watch and quickly discovers their base. He is initially captured, but soon set free when Satine arrives to help him. The two try to escape, but end up at the center of the camp where they are confronted by Death Watch's leader, who is revealed to be Governor Pre Vizsla. Vizsla duels Obi-Wan with the Darksaber and loses to the Jedi, giving Obi-Wan and Satine a chance to escape. In the end, Mandalore's ability to remain neutral is left uncertain as Obi-Wan and Anakin Skywalker escort Satine off planet. Season 2 avoids slipping into a mid-season slump by delivering what is far and away one of the very best episodes of Clone Wars that we have seen so far. The influence that this episode has had on the current tenets of the Star Wars franchise cannot be understated. This episode sees the introduction of true Mandalorian warriors, the Kryze family, the Darksaber, and pretty much everything else that the franchise seems so infatuated with right now. But getting back to the actual episode itself, this is probably the most personal mission that we have seen Obi-Wan take on so far, and he finally gets his own solo episode where he isn't shadowed by Anakin or a squad of clone troopers. We get some time to just sit with Obi-Wan and his perspectives, and it's one of the episode's strongest aspects. This is perhaps best seen in the relationship that he has with Duchess Satine, who herself makes an excellent addition to the recurring cast of the series, showing a lot of the strong qualities that makes Padme Amidala the hero she is. It's easy to understand how Obi-Wan fell in love with her. Okay, sure, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but their relationship is made incredibly obvious through the manner in which they speak to each other and the insinuations that they have more history together than they are letting on. Also, Obi-Wan just straight up hits her with the "you've grown even more beautiful" line when he pulls up, so you know right away that there is something happening there. The political plot here also shows off the maturity that we've come to expect from Clone Wars at this point, revolving around the terrorist group Death Watch's plan to force a Republic occupation of Mandalore so that they can use it to turn the people against the government, allowing them to take over. The political elements and themes of rebellion here draw a direct line back to the ideas behind the original trilogy, playing with public bombings as a mean of political statement and even exploring individuals who commit suicide rather than put their cause at risk. It's what we've come to expect from the prequel era of Star Wars, but there's an emotional and cultural element here that gives it more weight and impact. It's always interesting to explore neutral planets in Star Wars, and Mandalore is no different. Obi-Wan's quest to prove Satine's innocence gives the plot a nice driving force, and seeing how the revelation of Death Watch puts Mandalore's neutrality at risk makes for a compelling setup. This episode is also extremely well put together in terms of audio and visuals. Mandalore looks gorgeous, there's some nice dynamic camera work and framing here, and the music is notably excellent. The action also delivers in spades, giving us our first taste of the Darksaber when Pre Vizsla, an intriguing but underdeveloped villain, duels Obi-Wan. Seeing the Mandalorians capture Obi-Wan establishes their skills right off the bat, and Obi-Wan's improvisation after he loses his lightsaber is super fun. He of course picks up a blaster, uses hand-to-hand combat, the Force, and he even uses the Mandalorians' jetpack against them. So uncivilized. And while Vizsla is quite undercooked here, I do like how he is so cultish that he executes a soldier who failed to defeat Obi-Wan. I do also really like how the episode touches upon Jango Fett, brushing him off as a lowly bounty hunter, but his presence is still felt throughout the episode when you hear that the Mandalorian blasters sound just like Jango's pistols. Also, apparently they have Minecraft trees on Mandalore. Pretty cool. The Mandalore plot isn't just one of Clone Wars' very best episodes, it's the birthplace of a plethora of cultures, narratives, and plot devices that have come to define modern Star Wars. It's nice seeing Obi-Wan take on a deeply personal solo mission, and his relationship with Satine raises curiosities in the best possible ways. The introduction of Mandalorian warriors is the clear highlight, and Death Watch establishes themselves as a powerful force within the Clone Wars. The action here is excellent, the political themes are compelling, and it all makes for a thrilling tale on Mandalore. And that was the Mandalore plot. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 2. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we're looking at episode 13 from season 2 titled Voyage of Temptation. After surviving an encounter on Mandalore with the separatist supported group Death Watch, Duchess Satine travels to Coruscant to plead Mandalore's need to uphold neutrality after the incident. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin Skywalker and their clone troopers are tasked with protecting the Duchess and quickly find their skills needed after assassin probes programmed to kill the Duchess are discovered on board. After defeating the droids, Obi-Wan discovers that Satine's ally Senator Marek was responsible for smuggling the droids on board, and in reaction the senator takes Satine hostage, rigs the ship to explode, and calls in support from Death Watch. While Obi-Wan tries his best to rescue Satine, Anakin and the clones defeat Marek's backup in time for Anakin to race to Obi-Wan's aid, where he kills Marek, preventing the ship from being destroyed and saving Satine. The end of the episode sees Satine safely delivered to Coruscant as Obi-Wan is left to reflect upon his time with his dear friend. Voyage of Temptation focuses less on the political struggles of Mandalore and instead chooses to focus on the relationship between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Duchess Satine Kryze. This episode does in fact confirm that Obi-Wan once had a romantic relationship with Satine, and that Obi-Wan still holds repressed feelings towards the Duchess. Obi-Wan has always been a pretty cut and dry Jedi Master, pretty much always sticking to the rules except for when there is no other option, so the revelation that he was once romantically involved with another person is pretty shocking. It's an interesting situation because we rarely see the Jedi Order's rule against attachment in action. Sure, it was explored with Anakin, but he just completely gave up on it and went all in with Padme. He hesitated for that one famous scene from Attack of the Clones and never thought about it afterwards. Here we finally get a proper exploration of a Jedi's struggle with this rule, and it's extremely compelling. Satine on some level clearly despises Obi-Wan for choosing the Jedi Order over her. This is made evident through their bickering in front of the other senators that's vaguely masked as political debate. She understands Obi-Wan's oath, but she wishes things could be different. To a certain degree, Obi-Wan clearly feels the same way. Ultimately, the whole situation shows that Obi-Wan does have flaws in the eyes of the Order, but those flaws only make him more human. In the end, his notoriety as a Jedi is only made even more revered because he chose the Order over love, perhaps the most difficult decision a Jedi has ever been forced to make. There is of course that heartbreaking line where Obi-Wan says he would have left the Order if Satine had asked him, but he said it in an effort to distract her captor. Whether or not he really meant it is left up to the individual viewer's decision. Personally, my favorite aspect of this relationship is how Anakin reacts to it. There are these elevator scenes that mirror the famous scene from Attack of the Clones where Anakin senses Obi-Wan's uneasiness around Satine and starts to pick up on his feelings for her. Then they have this great discussion about the Jedi's stance against attachment, and it's funny seeing how Anakin enjoys seeing Obi-Wan perturbed around Satine. Anakin is clearly trying to get Obi-Wan to admit that he was once romantically involved with Satine, which he clearly was, almost as if he believes that if Obi-Wan had a romantic partner, then his relationship with Padme would be justified. Honestly, the brilliance of this episode lies within the fact that it justifies why Obi-Wan said nothing to Anakin about Padme when he clearly suspected, or straight up even knew, that he was romantically involved with her. Obi-Wan understands Anakin's attachment to Padme even if he doesn't approve of it, because it was the exact same situation that he found himself tangled up in with Satine. The only difference is that Anakin gave into his human urges while Obi-Wan killed them. Clearly, Obi-Wan leaves Anakin and Padme alone because in some ways it's the life that he wanted with Satine. Moving away from the thrilling Obi-Wan and Satine fanfiction that was clearly developing there are also some interesting musings between Obi-Wan and Satine on the Jedi Council's supposed rule as peacekeepers in a galaxy at war, which I always appreciate. I also really enjoy the horror-tinged moments with the clone troopers and the assassin probes, and I love how Obi-Wan uses one of them to expose Marek. The action here is also solid as expected, and it pairs nicely with the almost melodramatic story playing out in the episode. Anakin also performs a lightsaber throw in this episode that honestly made me jump out of my chair when I saw it, purely because it almost never happens outside of the video games. I love how Anakin is also totally unbothered by killing Marek at the end of the episode, and the little sting of the Empire theme that accompanies it is greatly appreciated. And finally, why is Senator Tar just running around in this episode with what are clearly two, I'm going to use polite language here, courtesans? My man does not care about his public image at all. Voyage of Temptation is a highly regarded Clone Wars episode, not because of its action, but because of its emotional core. The revelation of Obi-Wan's past romantic relationship with Duchess Satine is shocking, and it reveals a very human side of Kenobi that we have never seen before. It makes for compelling television, and its similarities to Anakin's relationship with Padme answers answers a lot of questions that we have had after the prequels. It all pairs very nicely with a tale of political intrigue, assassination attempts, and standard Clone Wars action. And that was Voyage of Temptation. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 12. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 14 from season 2, titled Duchess of Mandalore. With the potential threat of the separatist-supported Mandalorian terrorist group Death Watch looming over the wider Republic, Duchess Satine travels to Coruscant to convince the Senate that her people can defeat the group without the aid of the Republic, as an occupation would only convince the Mandalorian people to side with Death Watch. But after a recording from one of Satine's close friends argues that Republic aid is in fact needed for the Mandalorian people to stop Death Watch, and Satine is almost killed after her speeder is sabotaged by the group, the Senate votes for Republic aid to be sent to the planet. Because the message was recorded before his untimely death, Satine cannot seek any further context to undo what was shown to the Senate. Desperate to stop the occupation, Satine reaches out to an old ally who has proof that the recording shown to the Senate was doctored. Unfortunately, he is assassinated by a Death Watch agent working to ensure that Republic aid is sent to Mandalore so Death Watch can turn the people against Satine, causing Satine to be framed for murder. Fortunately, with the help of her friend Obi-Wan Kenobi, Satine is able to deliver the unaltered message to the Senate, reassuring the Republic that Mandalore can fight Death Watch without Republic interference, causing the Senate to withdraw their request for an occupation of Mandalore. After Satine turns herself in, she is cleared of any wrongdoings and her planet is finally safe from the separatist-supported Death Watch. Jesus Christ, that was a lot to cover. Look, I'm not gonna lie, I totally forgot that this episode existed. That's not a dig towards the episode because it's fantastic, but for some reason this one just slipped through the recesses of my mind. I remember the episode with Jar Jar and his girlfriend, yet I couldn't remember this very important episode starring Satine and Obi-Wan. What on earth is wrong with me? Duchess of Mandalore continues to prove that Clone Wars' Mandalore arcs tend to provide us with some of the strongest episodes the series has to offer. It continues to provide a thrilling combination of politics, politically motivated violence, and even throws in some espionage for good measure. The core conflict at the center of this episode, Satine's desperate fight against a Republic occupation that would doom her planet, is an incredibly mature and compelling narrative for the episode to revolve around. Death Watch is working with the Separatists to do everything in their power to influence the Republic into occupying Mandalore, a plot that Palpatine is also clearly trying to orchestrate so that they can use the Republic presence as a call to arms to turn the Mandalorian people against Satine, giving Death Watch the power they need to take over Mandalore. In a roundabout way, a Republic occupation with good intentions would doom Mandalore. It's an incredibly complex situation, which is only made all the more surprising by the fact that this is all worked through in a children's cartoon. This is an incredibly personal conflict for Satine and her people. Death Watch is an incredibly passionate group, and having Obi-Wan and Satine's relationship mixed up somewhere in the middle of it all makes for a strangely emotional political plot. Clone Wars has a talent for making the politics of Star Wars compelling in a way that the prequels never could, and it's an astounding feat. Seeing Obi-Wan and Satine's political views drive a wedge between them is heartbreaking, and the deep trust they have in one another ultimately leading to their victory is the emotional core here, and it drives the narrative forward. Satine's mission to prove her people don't need the Republic delivers the brief yet fun action we get from this episode. I love the chases between her and the Mandalorian assassin trying to kill her, and I love the fight we get between him and Obi-Wan at the end of it all. We also continue to see a unique side of Obi-Wan in this episode. The usually calm and collected Jedi Master spends the entire episode anxious and worried for his friend. It shows an emotional side to Obi-Wan that we never really get to see, and it only makes for a more emotional episode. Duchess of Mandalore delivers the emotionally charged political action that Clone Wars has become known for over the years. Obi-Wan and Satine's relationship continues to inject compelling drama into the show, and it shows us a side of the Jedi we rarely see. The chase between Satine and her assassin are thrilling, her quest to prove her people's independence, and some thrilling politics all come together to create an episode that is as emotional as it is politically charged. And that was Duchess of Mandalore. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 10. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 15 from season 2 titled Senate Murders. While Padme Amidala and a group of her fellow senators, including Bail Organa and Onaconda Farr, are fighting to ban a movement to approve the creation of even more clone troopers to fight in the war, Farr is killed after being poisoned in the Senate building. Driven by her grief over the death of her uncle, Padme and Bail investigate Farr's death and try to find his killer. While initial signs point to the senator from Camino and Senator Dici is also murdered, and the Kaminoan is eventually proven innocent when the real killer reveals themselves. Senator Lolo, Farr's political prodigy, is exposed as the killer, motivated by her mentor's previous mistakes that have caused problems for her system. Padme is able to disarm the killer and she is taken away. At the end of the episode, the bill for the creation of more clones is passed, casting an uncertain shadow over whether or not the war will ever end. Senate Murders is a disappointingly weak episode of Clone Wars that is devoid of the usual saving graces of the series such as Jedi and action. But before I dig into the faults of this episode, let me tell you what I did enjoy. Padme being driven by the grief of her uncle's death is at least interesting. It's only explored at a surface level, but Organa's questioning of her motives behind the investigation at least tries to inject some emotion into the episode. This is very much the Star Wars equivalent of a classic whodunit story, and while it is a fun novelty, it doesn't do much for the episode. Padme throws hands, there are some fun little red herrings thrown in for good measure, but there is nothing here that I am in love with. The setup is painfully boring, a debate over a bill to increase the production of clone troopers for the Republic, essentially a military spending debate. This would usually be a solid jumping off point to tell a wider story, which to give the episode credit it does, but there are no stakes or emotion injected into the story here to give it the compelling aspect that Clone Wars usually excels at. The only major character death here to give the story some form of stakes is Onaconda Farr, and even then he only appeared in one previous episode in any substantial form, and has gone on to become a glorified background character by the time he dies here. Every other character who gets killed here is introduced for the first time in this episode, providing no weight behind any further violence. Even the revelation of Senator Lolo being the killer ultimately doesn't really mean anything because she was only introduced in this episode. I don't care if she is the killer. Perhaps if the episode had made better use of established characters, it could have been something. Unfortunately, it just remains painfully flat. There is one small silver lining here. Lieutenant Devo, an at least slightly visually interesting police detective voiced by the legendary voice actor Tom Kenny. But otherwise, that's about all the positive things I have to say about this episode. Sure, the approval of the creation of more clone troopers is a pivotal moment in the war, but the episode doesn't do anything to actually physically convey what this means. Senate Murders is a painfully weak episode of Clone Wars. Without any appropriate emotion or stakes tied to the politics, it all falls on deaf ears. The deaths of insignificant characters carry no weight, and the massive decision around the approval of more clone troopers being created is drowned out by the mediocrity of everything else surrounding it. Clone Wars is a brilliant show, but it isn't perfect. This episode is a reminder of that. And that was Senate Murders. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 36. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 16 from season 2 titled Cat and Mouse. In Clone Wars' very first chronological episode, Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi fight to break a separatist blockade led by Admiral Trench so that they can deliver resources to Bail Organa's relief effort on the surface of Christophsis. After being forced to retreat and regroup, Anakin and Admiral Yularen pilot a prototype Republic stealth ship on a mission to deliver the much needed resources to the planet. But after Trench starts bombing the surface to draw out the Republic, Anakin is forced to take out Trench's command ship. His initial attack fails and reveals the stealth ship to Trench, but Anakin improvises a plan of attack using the Admiral's own missiles against him after he is forced to lower his shields to fire them. Anakin destroys Trench and his ship, leaving his fleet helpless to Obi-Wan's attack. In the end, Anakin finally delivers the supplies to the surface, and the Republic win the day. Cat and Mouse is a huge comeback for Clone Wars after the disappointing previous previous episode that delivers a super tense game of cat and mouse, obviously, that shows off Anakin's skills as a strategist and a pilot as he attempts to outwit the smartest separatist leader that we have ever seen. But perhaps the most interesting aspect of this episode is the fact that this is the very first episode of Clone Wars when you place the series in chronological order. This episode even takes place before the movie. The decision to originally air Clone Wars out of order is still controversial to this day, and the fact that it took 38 episodes to see the start of the series is just bewildering. But a logical ordering aside, this episode stands out as one of the very best episodes that we have seen so far. This episode is entirely dedicated to the strategy and skill behind space combat. Anakin's skill as a pilot certainly helps here, but ultimately it's planning and strategy that win the day. The entire plot revolves around Anakin piloting an experimental stealth ship as he attempts to outmaneuver Admiral Trench and destroy his command ship. Speaking of Trench, he is a joy to watch in this episode. We've seen a number of separatist leaders throughout the series so far, but Trench stands out. He's super interesting visually. Essentially, he's an anthropomorphic arachnid with some unique physical mannerisms, but he really makes an impact with his mind. Trench is smart and deadly efficient. This is displayed throughout the episode, and Admiral Yularen is already familiar with him. His reputation and the stories that Yularen tells about him build an incredible presence around the Admiral, and it creates a compelling threat for Anakin to defeat. I especially love that Yularen is able to recognize Trench's strategies and research his suspicions after the initial battle to find out more about his enemy. It's simple, but it shows that Trench holds significant weight within the Clone Wars. Anakin's skills piloting the stealth ship also shine in this episode. It's always interesting to see Anakin be put in a situation he can't win with brute force, and it also shows off his underrated skills as a strategic war general. His final strategy that wins the day shows a perfect intersection of his piloting skills and strategic planning that is a joy to watch, and proves why Anakin is as revered as he is. Trench and Anakin are equally matched, resulting in an episode that has some extremely tense moments that thrill and entertain. The whole situation plays out like a submarine movie in space, and it creates a nice connection back to the old World War scenarios that inspired Lucas in the first place. I only have one small nitpick here, and it's something that comes up quite often in this series. We again have another example of an extremely effective weapon being introduced, used for one episode, and then never being seen again. Why isn't everyone using cloaked ships? The only other one I can think of is Starkiller's ship from The Force Unleashed. At least I think that ship could cloak, and I'm sure there are some fan explanations citing stuff like cost, power consumption, and whatever, but they made it work here, so why didn't they just do it again? Stuff like this drives me crazy. But it's hard to linger on a nitpick when there are so many other small details to appreciate here, like how Trench's ship has war paint. It makes him stand out even more. We also get a nice little Easter egg from Bail Organa, who basically repeats Leia's famous hologram from A New Hope to Obi-Wan during this episode. And finally, Trench's face of acceptance before his ship is destroyed is just perfect. Cat and Mouse proves itself to be one of Clone Wars' very best episodes. The tension here is palpable, Anakin and Admiral Trench are equally matched, and the incorporation of a stealth ship creates some super unique action. This is an episode beaming with personality from both sides, and it's a joy to watch Anakin's reckless strategies win the day. This is essential Star Wars viewing. And that was Cat and Mouse. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 4. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 17 from season 2 titled Bounty Hunters. Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Ahsoka Tano travel to Felucia to check in on a Republic medical station that has lost contact. They arrive to find the station has been destroyed and instead find a squad of Vulture droids waiting for them that shoot them down, causing them to crash on the planet. Looking for a ship to take them off the planet, they stumble onto a farm that is protected by bounty hunters. It is revealed that pirates led by Hondo Anaka are holding the farm ransom until they deliver a portion of their crop to the pirates. With the bounty hunters as their only way off planet, the Jedi are forced to help them defend the farm to secure a ride. The Jedi go to work teaching the farmers how to defend themselves, prepping for Hondo's forces. In the end, Hondo's forces are repelled, forcing them to retreat off planet, and the Jedi secure their ride with the bounty hunters back to a Republic outpost. Bounty Hunters is dedicated to the cinematic legend Akira Kurosawa. If you don't already know, Kurosawa's films, especially The Hidden Fortress, had a huge influence on George Lucas as a filmmaker and specifically on Star Wars. In fact, it could be argued that without Kurosawa, Star Wars wouldn't exist. The episode's story is essentially the plot from Seven Samurai with a Star Wars skin revolving around hired warriors defending farmers from bandits who want to steal their crops. I'm not sure what exactly inspired the creators of Clone Wars to make this homage to Kurosawa, but it's a loving one that subliminally introduces younger audiences to the building bricks of cinema and storytelling. Of course, it's hard to hate the pirates when they are led by Hondo Ohnaka, making a spectacular return to the series here. Objectively, Hondo is an awful person who only cares about wealth, but he is so charismatic and fun to watch that you can't help but love him. I don't know about you, but I have a huge smile on my face whenever he is on screen. The degeneracy of the pirates is effectively used to make the bounty hunters seem noble in comparison. A vast majority of bounty hunters, especially at this point in the franchise's history, are portrayed as soulless mercenaries who only care about money. But this episode gives us a group of bounty hunters who at the very least have standards you can respect. Sure, they are being paid to protect the farmers, but they don't break their deal when Hondo offers them more money, and they aren't painted as awful people. I also love the teachings on perceived strength in this episode. There is a running theme about people being more powerful than they believe and using your own unique strengths to fight your battles. This is seen through the villagers becoming competent fighters by the end of the episode, and the insecurity that the bounty hunter Serapis hides with his battle armor that is conquered when he defeats a pirate without it by the end of the episode. The little cherry on top of this theme is of course the cowardly farmer who at first rejects fighting, killing a pirate at the end of the episode. It's a perfect summary of what the story is trying to teach its young audience. There's a lot to love here. Anakin's quip about blaming the ship for being the reason he always seems to get shot down is a lot of fun, and I like how he's clearly very precious about his reputation as a pilot. Ahsoka getting a kick out of seeing Anakin and Obi-Wan bicker is also a lot of fun, and it's a nice cathartic moment to not be on the receiving end of Anakin's stubbornness for once. As previously mentioned, Hondo has a lot of fun here. He has a great duel with Anakin on top of a tank that involves his pet controlling the tank and firing on the village like a little maniac as he tries to shake Anakin off of the top. Then when the pirate leader is defeated, he makes a grand exit with a booming declaration that this effort is no longer profitable, almost as if to say that he made the decision to leave independently of the losing battle. Bounty Hunters is a loving homage to Japanese filmmaker Akira Kurosawa that teaches important lessons about true strength and believing in yourself. The bounty hunters here stand out from the standard stock, the action is solid, and Hondo Ohnaka steals every scene that he is in. It's all a lot of fun and provides a nice distraction from the main conflict of the show. And that was Bounty Hunters, ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far. It currently sits at number 22. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 18 from season 2 titled The Zillo Beast. After they find themselves facing unbeatable odds against the droid army on Malastare, Mace Windu and Anakin Skywalker help to test a new Republic superweapon, a bomb that promises to disable the droid army but leave their living troops unharmed. They successfully deploy the weapon and it works as promised, but it causes a massive sinkhole to open up in the middle of the battlefield. After they lose contact with rescue teams in the crater, Anakin and Mace investigate and discover an ancient creature thought to be extinct called the Zillo Beast was released from its underground habitat thanks to the bomb. The local people, the Dugs, insist that the beast must be killed or their people will forever be at risk. Mace Windu, following the Jedi Code, refuses to help the Dugs kill the creature, causing Anakin to offer a compromise. Anakin suggests that the Republic merely incapacitates the creature, leaving the Dugs to merely think that the creature is dead, giving the Republic an opportunity to relocate the creature off-world to a planet where it can live peacefully. In the end, the Zillo Beast is captured by the Republic and taken off-world, pleasing the Dugs so that they can finally sign the fuel treaty that the Republic was after all along. The Zillo Beast is Clone Wars' answer to the classic tale of Godzilla. In fact, it's a full-on ripoff. This is the origin of Godzilla with Clone Wars flavoring all the way down to an atomic, or in this case EMP bomb, being the catalyst that causes the creature to wake up. That is all this episode is. It's just Godzilla, but it is a lot of fun. The opening battle here has an impressive scale. There is an endless amount of battle droids that give the clones an impossible challenge until the bomb drops, disabling all of them. This is followed by a massive sinkhole opening up in the middle of the battlefield, swallowing everything in its way, and then of course the discovery of the Zillo Beast. I love how Mace and his clones are just unknowingly walking on the beast before it wakes up, and the chaos that it causes afterwards. There's this fantastic sequence where Anakin climbs up the beast like a mission out of Shadow of the Colossus, and then escapes from its grasp by riding R2 out of the crater, which I found quite funny if I'm being quite honest. Then the rest of the episode is defined by a mix of political and moral debates around what should be done with the creature. Pairing Skywalker with Windu was a great choice for this episode because they represent two different parties. Windu simply wishes to leave the beast be, a decision he came to based on the Jedi teachings, whereas Anakin, being the Republic loyalist that he is in an effort to impress Palpatine, suggests that a single creature isn't worth jeopardizing the Republic's relations with the Dugs. It's interesting seeing two Jedi be on different sides of an argument and the compromise they reach to please both perspectives. It goes without saying that the battle that ensues with the Zillo Beast is brilliant. This is exactly what would happen if you dropped Godzilla into the Star Wars universe, and we get a healthy dose of rampaging as the Republic uses their tanks to try and knock the beast out. It's a visual treat, and it's another example of how Clone Wars gets more and more confident with incorporating larger set pieces over time. I can't point out any obvious faults here. Yes, this is a very simple and straightforward episode, but it is all extremely fun. Hell, there's even a Wilhelm scream. This episode is just a creature feature tucked away in a season of Clone Wars. Anakin also has a lot of great little moments here. I love his very natural and believable reaction when he discovers that the Zillo Beast is impervious to his lightsaber, and how his robotic arm reacts to the EMP blast. Also, we get a whole army of Sebulbas here. Yes, I know they're called Dugs, but come on, it's Sebulba. I wonder how Anakin feels about helping out the race of people where his old pod racing rival originated from. Would be a clear indicator of whether or not he is a space racist. Just a dumb thought I had. The Zillo Beast is a very fun homage to the King of Monsters, dragging that story into the Star Wars universe in an action-packed creature feature with some intriguing moral and political undertones. The pairing of Anakin and Mace Windu makes for some interesting internal conflict, the Zillo Beast is magnificent, and the episode, while never reaching for anything spectacular, delivers thrills from start to finish. And that was the Zillo Beast. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 24. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 19 from season 2, titled The Zillo Beast Strikes Back. Subtle, Filoni. Subtle. After capturing the Zillo Beast on Malastare, the Republic transports the beast to Coruscant on Palpatine's orders, with the intention of studying the beast's impervious skin in an effort to incorporate it into clone trooper armor. Palpatine orders the scientists to kill the beast to speed up the process, a decision which the Jedi push back against. Ultimately, Palpatine gives the go-ahead, but during the euthanasia process, the Zillo Beast escapes and starts to wreak havoc on Coruscant, specifically targeting the Chancellor. With the combined effort of the Jedi Council and the Republic, the Zillo Beast is eventually defeated and killed. Coruscant returns to normal, but in the aftermath, Palpatine instructs his scientists to clone the Zillo Beast, giving a strange glimmer of hope for the future of the species. The Zillo Beast Strikes Back takes the Zillo Beast to the next logical step, and all-out city-wide rampage. The clear inspirations of Godzilla and King Kong are on full display here, and it creates a very fun episode with some slight moral arguments for good measure. Palpatine is insistent on killing the Zillo Beast, not only to speed up the process of figuring out how to synthesize its skin for clone armor, but he also clearly doesn't want to risk the creature getting loose. Pretty much everyone around him opposes the decision, except his little bitch Anakin Skywalker, of course. Even the scientist doesn't want to kill the beast, which is a rare quality for these characters to have. Whether or not it is morally right to kill a creature under the presumption of saving countless lives is one thing, but the added fact that it's the last of an extinct species only complicates the matter. All in all, it makes for some compelling arguments. The beast is smart enough to pick up on the fact that Palpatine wants to kill it, and when it breaks out, it tries to kill the Chancellor in retaliation, which would have made it a hero, but oh well. Despite Anakin being Palpatine's good little bootlicker in this episode, he does understand where his friends are coming from when they are trying to fight against the Beast's execution. They know Anakin has a special relationship with the Chancellor, which they try to use to break through to him to no effect. Anakin is constantly torn between his duty as a Jedi and his loyalty to the Republic, and it's no different this episode. But of course, the real showstopper in this episode is the Zillo Beast's rampage. The creature breaks free of its constraints and plows through the streets of Coruscant, crushing civilians and making buildings crumble. It's actually quite a cathartic moment because arguably the Beast's attitude is justified all things considered. There is a thrilling fight with the Jedi and clone troopers as they try to bring down the Zillo. Yoda and Aayla Secura even jump out of a gunship and traverse across the creature in an effort to distract the Beast in a sequence that is jaw-dropping. The inevitable death of the Beast shocks, and it caps off the episode on an incredibly somber note that really makes everyone involved question what the hell the Republic is doing lately. Which brings me to the only major problem I have with this episode. Who the hell thought it was a good idea to bring the Zillo Beast to Coruscant? I mean, sure, it was clearly Palpatine, but surely they could have set up a more secure location for it. All in all, it was a pretty dumb decision. But speaking of Palpatine, we do clearly see pieces of the Emperor leaking through in this episode, which I greatly appreciate. You can just see it in his face at certain points, and it's a joy to see. Also, I love how Palpatine rides on R2 at one point to get away from the Zillo. I thought that was quite funny. The Zillo Beast strikes back, takes the creature to its next logical point, an all-out rampage on Coruscant. Thrilling creature feature action mixed with some more moral arguments create an episode that is exciting and reflective. If you ever wanted to see some Jedi take on Godzilla, then this is probably the closest you will ever get. And that was the Zillo Beast Strikes Back. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 24. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 20 from season 2 titled Death Trap. Boba Fett makes his dramatic comeback after the death of his father in Attack of the Clones, and he is here to take his revenge against the man who killed his father, Jedi Master Mace Windu. To accomplish this, Boba poses as a clone trooper cadet and joins a tour of the Jedi cruiser that Windu is currently serving on with Anakin Skywalker. Boba booby traps Windu's quarters with the hope of killing him, but when a trooper sets off the trap instead of Windu, Boba is forced to improvise. Working with fellow bounty hunters Aurra Sing and Bosk, Boba is instructed to cripple the cruiser by destroying the main reactor. Boba follows these instructions and destroys the ship, causing it to crash land on the planet below. Boba escapes with the clone cadets in an escape pod, which he sabotages so that he can get into deeper space to rendezvous with his accomplices. Anakin and Mace track down the missing escape pod, saving the cadets left inside, and at the end of the episode, they head towards the crashed cruiser to save the Admiral and any crew left behind. While recent Star Wars projects have perhaps overexposed Boba Fett as a character, his reappearance in Clone Wars was a big deal at the time. After all, there was definitely a story begging to be told after he witnessed Mace Windu killing his father in Attack of the Clones. Jango Fett's offspring didn't waste any time. Clearly his plan has been a long time in the making. Boba sneaks onto the Republic cruiser by posing as a clone cadet, a brilliant strategy considering that he is a clone himself. Minus the rapid aging, of course. They're on a field trip, for lack of a better word, seeing the inner workings of a Republic cruiser. It's nice spending some time with clone cadets, considering that they haven't really been explored in any part of the franchise beyond Clone Wars, so it's a fun novelty. And of course, because he is just a kid, nobody suspects Boba of anything even when he's just running around the ship by himself. Boba isn't just a one-note character here either, he actually has a conscience. He only wants to kill Windu, he doesn't want any collateral, he hesitates to disable the cruiser because he doesn't want to put the entire crew at risk just to get to Windu. He even thinks about saving the cadets in the escape pod before Aurra Sing completely shuts that fort down. Sure, he's driven by revenge, but he isn't necessarily a bad person, he just has a massive chip on his shoulder. He actually gets really close to killing Windu here, which is pretty impressive considering that he is just a kid. That combined with the fact that he essentially brings down a Republic cruiser from the inside by himself establishes Boba as a serious threat for Season 2's big finale arc. It is interesting seeing Anakin and Mace paired up again, although they don't really have a lot to do in this episode. If anything, they're kind of just set dressing in Boba's story. That being said, it is pretty funny to see how vulnerable a Republic cruiser is once someone is actually inside. A few stray shots in the reactor section and the whole ship crumbles. But I guess that's just how easy sabotage is when you have a good plan. We also get some nice bounty hunter imagery here with the return of the Slave One and the appearance of Aurra Sing, and the frickin' dinosaur man himself, Bosk. It's always nice to see familiar ships and faces, so their appearance at the end of the episode is a nice cherry on top of the whole thing. Also, Daniel Logan, the actor who played Boba Fett in Attack of the Clones, returns to voice him here, which I personally find really cool. Death Trap marks the monumental return of Boba Fett in a solid Clone Wars episode that drags the skeletons out of Mace Windu's closet. It's a proper bounty hunter reunion with the return of some familiar ships and faces in a story that sees Boba effectively destroy a Republic cruiser from the inside by himself. But most importantly, this episode lays the groundwork for Season 2's explosive final arc. And that was Death Trap. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 22. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 21 from season 2 titled R2 Come Home. After Boba Fett causes a Republic cruiser to crash land following his assassination attempt on Mace Windu, Anakin Skywalker and Windu search the crashed cruiser for its commander Admiral Killian. But while exploring the ship, the two discover a trap left by Boba in the form of Jango Fett's helmet containing a bomb. Anakin and Windu are left trapped after triggering the bomb, with R2 left as their only hope. After R2 prevents the bounty hunters from entering the ship and finding the trapped Jedi, he tries to send for help but is forced to outrun the bounty hunters in Mace's fighter after his communications are jammed. R2 makes it back to the Jedi Council just in time to organize a rescue mission. In the end, Mace and Anakin are rescued by Plo Koon and Ahsoka Tano, and the bounty hunters escape with Admiral Killian as their prisoner. R2 Come Home gives the famous astromech the spotlight for his very own episode that reminds us all why we love the little blue and white droid. R2 is a very special kind of droid. In fact, he's the kind of droid that makes you question whether or not the bucket of bolts is actually sentient or not. Here we see R2 on a mission to save his best friend. Yes, that's the way I see it, Anakin Skywalker. The droid fights bounty hunters to prevent them from finding his master in a sequence I found very amusing. He kills Gundarks with Jedi starfighters, and he even outmaneuvers the Slave One. He caps off all of these trials and tribulations by delivering the message that saves Anakin and Mace. R2 gets to show off just how smart and dangerous he really is in this episode, and honestly, he can get pretty sadistic at certain points. Although he does earn Mace Windu's respect at the end of the episode, which is something that even Anakin never achieved. We also continue to see more of Boba and the bounty hunters here, this time joined by the notorious whiner, Castus. Boba's trap involving rigging his dad's helmet to explode is a lot of fun, and hearing Mace and Anakin revisit the events of Attack of the Clones while they are trapped in the cruiser is interesting. Although that being said, I'm a little confused by the whole setup here. Anakin is the one to find Jango's helmet, and he doesn't recognize it at all. Sure, he only ran into Jango once in Attack of the Clones, but surely he'd remember him from that pivotal moment in the war. But then again, Mace doesn't even recognize the helmet at first either, so maybe I'm expecting too much here. All I'm saying is that it's strange that nobody seems to remember this bounty hunter who played a massive role in Attack of the Clones. But then there's the destruction of the helmet. Boba wears his father's armor, including his helmet, so is this really his dad's helmet that gets blown up? Did he make a fake one? Did he actually blow up his dad's helmet and make a new one for himself later? Personally, considering how indestructible Mandalorian armor would be revealed to be, I think this is a fake helmet. But regardless, it's a lot of effort for a simple bomb. It does make for some great scenes with Windu revisiting his execution of the bounty hunter, and the final rescue at the end of the episode is a tense and well done sequence. So the setup here does pay off to justify any minor confusion around the helmet. Beyond that, there are a couple of small details here that I love, such as the purple colors incorporated into Mace Windu's droid. This man really loves the color purple for some reason. Also, Boba is carrying his dad's blasters, which I just think is neat. R2 Come Home sees Boba continue his campaign against Mace Windu, with Anakin getting caught in the crossfire. R2 is the hero of this episode, proving why he is as beloved as he is, causing more than enough trouble for the bounty hunters, and his exploits are a joy to watch. The setup with Jango's helmet is a chilling callback, the final rescue is thrilling, and it all sets the stage for the big final episode of Season 2. And that was R2 Come Home, ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far. It currently sits at number 27. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far. Today we are looking at episode 22 from season 2 titled Lethal Trackdown. The final episode of season 2 sees Boba Fett continue his revenge campaign against Mace Windu by leveraging his hostages Admiral Killian, Commander Pons, and a clone officer. Boba and Aurra Sing send a hologram threatening to kill hostages until Mace comes to them. Boba hesitates to shoot Pons, but Aurra finishes the job. With Mace still recovering from his previous run-in with the bounty hunters, Plo Koon and Ahsoka Tano head out to track down the bounty hunters. After looking around in Coruscant's criminal underworld, the Jedi discover an accomplice of the bounty hunter Castus talking about how Sing just killed the bounty hunter for almost selling out Boba and Sing on Florum. Plo Koon and Ahsoka travel to Florum where Hondo Ohnaka meets them and clears himself of any involvement with the bounty hunters. After a standoff with Boba and Aurra, clearly frustrated by Windu's absence, Plo Koon captures Fett, and after a brief skirmish, Ahsoka brings down the Slave One with Aurra Sing inside, seemingly killing the bounty hunter. At the end of the episode, Boba Fett and Bossk are taken into custody, the hostages are rescued, and Fett comes face to face with Windu one last time before he is taken away. Lethal Trackdown specifically excels in one aspect, humanizing a young Boba Fett. The opening quote of the episode, "Revenge is a confession of pain," is in essence a summary of Boba in this arc. Boba is not a killer, at least not at this point in his life. He just has an insatiable urge to kill Mace Windu, which is understandable considering that he killed his father. Arguably the only person Boba directly killed in this entire arc was the clone trooper who set off the bomb meant for Windu in the first episode of the arc, and even then Boba didn't mean to kill that trooper. For this entire arc, Boba only wanted to kill Windu. He has straight up avoided killing for any other reason. All of this is done in service of conveying that Boba is really just a lost kid with nobody or anything left to guide him except his grief. If Boba had managed to get Windu dead to rights with a blaster to his head at any point during this arc, there is reason to believe that he might not actually be able to go through with it. This is Boba's arc, and it takes the bratty snot-nosed kid we saw in Attack of the Clones and makes him a more well-rounded and thoughtful character, something that Clone Wars excels at. Speaking of Boba, I like how Anakin and Mace talk about him in this episode. While they are recovering in the hospital, Anakin goes on about how they need to track down Boba after he tried to kill Windu, whereas Mace seems totally unbothered by the incident. It's another interesting contrast between Mace sticking to the Jedi's teachings against acting on emotion and attachment, and Anakin thinking with his heart instead of his mind. Mace doesn't care about vengeance or revenge, which is the exact example a Jedi Master should present. Eventually, Plo Koon and Ahsoka are sent to deal with the bounty hunters. I love the pairing of these two because it's a reunion of sorts. After all, Plo Koon is the Jedi who brought Ahsoka to the temple as a youngling. I like how he instructs Ahsoka to be patient because he can see that she has picked up Anakin's qualities after being his apprentice for so long. For once, Ahsoka actually stops and listens, and she is rewarded for it by finding the information she needed. It shows more growth from the Padawan, and I love Plo Koon's exchange with the bartender in this scene where he places his lightsaber on the bar like it's a badge. The bounty hunters continue to be a lot of fun here too. Bossk continues to just be a cool dinosaur man that mostly chills in the background and seems unbothered by everything, and Castus gets shot by Aurra Sing after he abandons the mission and almost sells her out. The standoff between the Jedi, Boba, and Sing is a lot of fun, the chase afterwards is cool, and seeing Ahsoka take down the Slave One is an impressive feat. Hondo's inclusion here is also greatly appreciated. His romantic relationship with Sing is surprising and honestly kind of gross, and I love how he doesn't get involved with the bounty hunters and goes out of his way to make sure the Jedi know that he has absolutely nothing to do with this. He's just a chill guy. Speaking of Hondo, I love the little scene with his pets beating the shit out of each other, cause just why? Also, RIP to Commander Pons. Bro survived multiple missions with Mace Windu, only to get shot in the back of the head and dumped into space. Lethal Trackdown caps off Clone Wars' second season with a suitably explosive finale. The bounty hunters continue to be a lot of fun, Boba gets some much needed fleshing out, and the pairing of Ahsoka and Plo Koon is a highlight. Ahsoka continues to prove her skills are improving with each episode, and we continue to see that the Clone Wars isn't the only problem that the Jedi have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And that was Lethal Trackdown. Ranking it against every other episode of Clone Wars I've reviewed so far, it currently sits at number 22. Will it hold this place? Only time will tell. And here is the complete ranking so far, with Season 2 now complete. Wow, that was a lot. If you've made it to the end of the video, then thank you, it means the world to me. That's the end of season 2, but stay tuned because we're going to be diving into season 3 very soon, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss it. Thank you all for watching, and as always, I'll see you all in the next video.